I first heard about Whop on Twitter, I think about a year ago. I kept hearing people say, hey, there's a ton of kids making lots of money on Whop. And I was curious, how does that even work? So I checked it out. First, I couldn't really figure out what Whop was, how it worked, etc. Since then, I've run a couple of content rewards campaigns on Whop. I actually, as of yesterday, submitted or resubmitted my app on the Whop App Store as well. So I'm a little bit more familiar with Whop. That's my Whop story. I got to see it as of last year, and I get to see it how it is today. What are the beginnings of it? Because I feel like it's a little bit hard for people to understand what it is. What's the origin story of Whop?
Well, the origin story of Whop goes back actually way before Whop even started. And that origin story was when my co-founder Cameron and I met in a Facebook group when we were maybe 13 years old. And all we did all day was figure out which businesses to build on Stripe, on Shopify, and we would find customers in Facebook, on Skype, on Discord when Discord came out. I guess fast forward us doing that for maybe 10 years, we were selling software in Discord communities, and the process was really bad. We had to guess what we were buying. We didn't necessarily know who we were transacting with. We had to Zelle somebody or Cash App somebody to actually buy this very niche software called sneaker bots. And the way Whop started was that we wanted to make a better marketplace for sneaker bots. And when we first launched, we basically made a way for people to go on and list their software for sale, and people could find it and buy it, and you knew exactly who you were buying from. We validated that the purchase was actually going through, and the person who is supposed to get access to the software got access to the software, and we were the first sellers. So we were building it because we needed a way to distribute our software businesses. And I think pretty quickly, people really liked the idea that we centralized a lot of what was traditionally sporadically placed all over the platform. So you could think about maybe setting up a different website, on a custom domain, and then integrating Stripe, and then figuring out where to go. And then once you got customers, you had to email them, and it was all over the place. And Whop was a very centralized, vertically integrated end-to-end place where you could operate first software businesses. And the people that were running software businesses, they didn't just want to sell software. They wanted to sell access to Telegram communities and Discord communities. And then people wanted to sell access to long-form video. And there was just this overwhelming amount of requests from different business owners as the internet economy has evolved over the last 5 years to support a broadening base of SKU types. And I guess up until now, we've basically been sitting behind a whiteboard every day trying to figure out ways people can make money on the internet. And the way to look at Whop is we're on a mission to deliver everyone a sustainable income. And some people choose to start a business as a way to provide for themselves. And then other people sometimes want to do more micro tasks, and maybe they don't want to start a full business, but maybe they want to make content for businesses, and they want to do data labeling for businesses. And Whop is this very tightly integrated internet economy that has all the functionality you need to make money on the internet in a sustainable way. And that's how we started and what we do now.
I think there's a strong generational divide. I think when I'm speaking to younger people, everyone tends to know what Whop is. They're familiar with it. When I speak to older people, often it's the first time they hear of it is when I mention it to them, which is surprising given the scale at which Whop is operating. Can you give me a few examples of what are the sort of main categories, the main things that people buy and sell on Whop, just so that everyone's kind of a little bit more familiar with what exactly it means to be the sort of marketplace for software, for digital services, etc.
Yeah, totally. So when we were growing up, we predominantly built on Shopify and Stripe. And I think if you ask the older generation where they may run, I think a lot of people would say Shopify and Stripe. And Shopify in particular, I think, is very obvious to everybody because everyone can wrap their head around the idea of selling a physical product. It's one of the longest standing business types that could possibly exist. And Shopify made it very democratized and accessible to everybody. But I think that the reality is what's happening is that the at an unprecedented rate. And as we look at what the next generation of entrepreneurship is going to look like, those businesses look like software businesses, they look like content businesses, they look like private community businesses, they look like more niche services businesses. They may still look like physical product businesses a little bit, but the way that time now is so into the internet that not everybody wants to buy physical products. People would maybe rather buy a long form video that teaches them something interesting, or maybe they want to buy a private group chat helping organize Fortnite games. And those are actually deemed as more valuable now than buying a watch, right? So I think when you look at the types of businesses on our platform, to answer your question, people sell everything from services. You think like maybe marketing or email services. They sell access to private communities across probably almost every single niche you could imagine, from trading to politics to world events to economic reports, so all of these different topics that you can expect to find on social media, but maybe just a little bit elevated as it's paid. People sell, I think now we almost have $800,000 to $900,000 a day in physical product sales, just to kind of paint the other end of the spectrum as well. So Whop is meant for the most cutting edge types of businesses, and those are some examples of what people sell on the platform.
Yeah, and I think something that's crucial to mention is just the scale of it, right? Because I think that's something that many people might not be familiar with. You guys, I mean, the first number that I saw, and this was last year, you guys have probably blasted past this, is I saw that you'd facilitated over $2 billion in payouts. These are tremendous numbers.
You never really realize how big the world is until you're looking at different international markets and you're seeing all sorts of stuff that you could never have guessed would happen. But yeah, I mean, I think we're actually now maybe even almost at $4 billion run rate in earnings. We probably have 35, 40,000 people per month that are money on the platform, and we try to position ourselves as not a platform where people are just using passively to make a couple extra dollars. The people that we're focused on are treating Whop as their full-time income, and they are basically waking up, going on the platform, iterating on their business, and it's really giving them a sustainable livelihood. It's not like a donation platform or maybe a fan platform where you're making a few extra dollars here and there.
So just out of curiosity, what's the single largest payout that you guys have processed for an individual merchant in a month? Do you have a rough order of magnitude?
Individual payout, I mean, probably above $1 million, $2 million in a single month. And that's just one individual payout, right? I mean, of course, those people are going to maybe be paying out themselves every month or every couple of weeks. So yeah, we think that the bigger businesses oftentimes can actually take advantage of a lot of the things the smaller businesses have figured out to do. And therefore, Whop is very suitable for larger enterprises and bigger companies that want to tap into this new generation of operating businesses on the internet. So Whop is very much meant for larger companies too.
Nice. So I imagine that when you guys started out, you still had to glue everything together from Shopify to Stripe to everything. And as you scaled, you started seeing some of the issues and some of the problems that you get at this scale, right? And payments in particular can be one which gets tricky, particularly with the sort of content that some people sell, groups, etc. You might see a higher chargeback risk. Tell me a little bit more about your experience on this. What were the things that you learned at the beginning?
Yeah, there's a lot of bad actors on the internet. And I think it's always shocking to see how you have these big pockets of fraud that all try to do the same attack. And once that attack is patched, it's very hard for the people to do the same attack again. And for a while, it's playing whack-a-mole, trying to stop all the fraudsters from either using stolen credit cards or offering no product and promising people things that they don't deliver on. And I think we just over time get a lot better at that. And we build out our trust and safety functions, and we kick people off the platform all the time. And a lot of people get angry with us, but that's unfortunately what we have to do. So I think challenges around payments, there's, aside from the technical complexity, there's a lot of partnerships externally that we deal with, and we have some awesome partners who we work with every day. But for the most part, we've been building payments products since we were really young. And I mean, before Whop, we even had a where we allowed homeless people to receive payments, and we would give them cash so that as a way for them to collect money on the streets of New York. So just kind of giving an example of, we've always been very into payments on the internet and getting into Bitcoin in the early days to pay different developers of ours when Cameron and I were building all these different businesses to pay these different developers in India or whichever country. And I think we've always been very into payments, and it's therefore been a core part of our DNA that I think we architected our systems in a great way. I think we've invested in trust and safety from the early days. And I think natural challenges that you'd expect in any payments business, but it's looked at now as almost normal operating procedure.
One of the things that stood out to me when I did my deep dive into Whop, the first thing I kind of checked out was the content rewards section. I had a background in marketing. I was curious to see how that worked. I spoke to a lot of people on Whop who make their living off of Whop through the content rewards program. And one of the things that stood out to me was that, first of all, they're all super young generally. Secondly, they're super digitally native. They're super online. And third, they're super open to crypto payments. In fact, they're open to crypto payments in a way that, not an ideological way, very sort of like utilitarian way. And Whop, of course, also takes stablecoin payments. So is that something that you guys have been supporting for a while in terms of stablecoins? Has that always been there since day one, or is this something that kicked off relatively recently?
So I think the way we've approached crypto is from an extremely utilitarian point of view. I think that the average consumer doesn't actually care about crypto as little as the crypto community wants to admit. They want their money fast and they want their money cheap. They want their money whenever they want their money. And we've been dealing with crypto since we were very young, maybe 2013 or 2012 even, 2014. The reason we use crypto is to pay our software developers in countries that didn't support local banking rails. So I think from the get-go, our team realized what crypto can be used for, especially in the payments context. And as we've developed our rails, it's always been a part of our platform. And we were relevant in the NFT era in using NFTs to unlock the different products you could put. So I think that was a take what people deemed NFTs to be actually useful for. We weren't just minting random NFTs and trying to sell people NFTs. It was more like, hey, you just bought this NFT. Let's figure out how to add value to it and make sure that it can be used for something. And in the crypto world, the same thing. We're putting a lot of our financial activity on chain right now, and that unlocks enormous applications in different apps and websites that people would normally have to on-ramp to. We have the ethos that we want to use crypto for the right reasons, and we're absolutely pro-crypto, and we are very excited for what the future is going to come for stablecoins and all of crypto.
Do you think the reason why you guys embraced crypto so early in the beginning is because you guys were a global company from day one? You had global ambitions, global team, and that was basically the best solution there was?
I think to some extent, yes. I just think that we couldn't imagine Whop not being supportive of crypto. It doesn't make any sense that you'd have a marketplace for all of the cutting edge businesses and not accept the most cutting edge forms of payment. So from the early days, I think even some of our earliest customers were actually won because we had crypto rails and because we accepted crypto. So definitely.
So one of the things that you guys announced recently, there's two very exciting crypto announcements that you guys had. One of them was the investment from Tether, which was a very large investment, surprised a lot of people. I know the Tether folks, I know they keep their eyes on the data. They probably saw the volume of transactions you guys were getting, and that's how the conversation started. How did that conversation actually start? Like, how did that look like?
Yeah, I was introduced to Paolo, and we had an amazing hour chat and had an awesome dinner. And I think we bonded over programming. We bonded over what is possible in a world that is powered by a free, open financial system. And both agreed that it's necessary to have an open market. People can actually participate in the global economy. And it was a very fun conversation. I think we're both very excited about what all of this stuff unlocks for the world. And it was an amazing conversation. Pretty quickly, I think we both realized we want to work with each other, and the rest was history.
Yeah, I when I first met Paolo, this was a couple of years ago, I remember he was already there. He was CTO, not CEO then. And we were in Oslo, and he was sat at this, at this bench in the hallway on his laptop coding, despite being one of the flagship attendants. He was just there coding on one screen, going for it. And I remember seeing that and thinking, wow, this guy's for real.
Exactly. Yeah, we're right. There's a really few people that are more authentic and down to earth and principled as Paolo is. So I can imagine. That does not shock me, that story.
So, I mean, Tether has received a lot of criticism in the past. I think now not so much, but in the past for this ambition to connect the world, to enable commerce all over the world, necessarily has these difficulties in terms of just all the different complications in terms of regulatory compliance. And, very often people choose not to serve certain customers because it's just a little bit complicated, not because, it's illegal to, or it's hard, or it's immoral to, but it's just simply a little bit more difficult to deal with that. I think Tether from the beginning has had the goal to be fairly open and global. And I feel like this ethos also pervades Whop, from as far as I can tell. You guys are very much into the sort of global nature of online commerce. But I assume this has also led to problems and criticisms in the past in terms of the sort of people you enable, the sort of transactions that can go through. How do you think about this?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think about it from a principle standpoint is that we want to have the most open and free market possible. And it's not our responsibility to put different things on different expectations on people as to what they may be interested in buying. For example, if you want to buy a weight loss course, who are we to judge your desire to do that? And I think people have a weird habit of trying to cast their own interest on what people want to buy and what people want to sell. That being said, there are obviously rules of what we allow on the platform. And for starters, anything that's illegal in different jurisdictions is simply not remotely allowed. Not only because we have commitments to different payment partners, but we also abide by the law. And I think that's one big aspect. We also have categories that we don't feel as though we want to support right now. And those are things like adult content. We have no adult content on the platform. And that's just simply not supported, even though maybe payments partners do allow that. So we have our set of rules, but on principle, we really want to have a free market and think that the levels of niches and what people are interested in is only going to expand further. And we are not in a position to say, hey, you shouldn't buy this or you should buy this. I think it's much more at the will of the person buying and the person selling. And that's how we approach it.
I think a lot of the people that end up on Whop are young people, young men in particular, who want to make money online, and often they fall into the sort of niche world of this, make money online world, and they end up buying courses from people of how you can make money online. And the criticism for these things is that, actually a lot of these courses don't actually work that well. They're not that effective. The course sellers themselves only make a living off of the people they sell the courses to. Do you ever think about this?
Yeah, so I mean, you're describing in a lot of ways myself and my co-founder and a lot of our team as the kids who were on Google trying to figure out ways to make money on the internet. And I think the idea of get rich quick is super taboo because nobody wants and nobody thinks that that's a possibility. And I think we would be fooling ourselves if we thought that was is something to promote and to be loud about. But I think, again, it's like if you're going to be teaching a course on how to start a Shopify store, the amount of questions that I get asked in my network how to start a Shopify store is so much that it would almost be a disservice to not allow that stuff. And if somebody says, hey, that's a scam, you shouldn't do that, it's like, well, what do you want them to do? They want to start a Shopify store and they want to learn from other people that also want to start a Shopify store. Do you want to just say nobody can buy that type of stuff? Like, they're not necessarily learning that in college. Like, what do you think the promise of college is? What is the promise of school? It's to get a job and to have a self-sustaining livelihood. And what percentage of people don't actually get jobs? It's a very, very high number now. So I think it's kind of a silly argument. And if somebody's on our site saying, hey, buy this $1,000 item and immediately you get $2,000, that's going to get taken down very fast. So we I think try to have the same principles as like, if this person is selling a course on how to build Airbnb businesses, that's pretty cool. And there should probably be more people that have those types of businesses. And if you buy that and you feel like you got scammed, then you can open an on-platform resolution case. So I think that's how we look at it.
Yeah, and I mean, the counter argument as well is like, a lot of people spend 4 years of their lives in university and hundreds of thousands of dollars for a degree that, may be less useful than $1,000 guide on how to, run Airbnbs or something, which is a wholly different conversation, but nevertheless, it's a bigger industry as of right now.
Right.
So I think one of the cool things about Whop, right, is that it brings together all of these different disparate pieces that you used to have to do to run an online business. And you guys solved the payment side of it for a lot of people. But as of recently, you're also heading deeper into the sort of fintech stack. And you recently announced a new product where people can actually get yield. I think it's a super exciting product. Can you tell me more about it?
Yeah. So we have a lot of people on the platform who host their business and earn money each month. And collectively, they earn around $300 million a month. And the normal course of business for these people is they'll go on the platform, they'll earn their money, they'll take all the money, they'll withdraw it to their bank, and then they'll immediately use that money and invest in Bitcoin, they'll invest in stocks, they'll run ads on Meta or TikTok, they'll maybe want to go and earn yield on it. They'll go spend it on cards. And the thinking is that who wants to wait for however many days that takes and go through however many hoops it takes to re-on-ramp to all these other platforms when you could just immediately use those funds to do the things you're already doing. So the thought process is, what does it look like if we on-ramp a lot of that initial earning flow and put it on chain and open it up so that it can be used for different applications on chain. That's the premise of all of it. We've rolled out Treasury as a way for people to immediately earn yield on the earnings that they're making. And again, these are not new concepts. These are just, by us bringing them closer to the source of income, it's just a lot better every year. And the people that are earning all the money, they don't have to go wait a bunch of days. They don't have to go onboard to a bunch of different platforms. They don't have to open a bunch of different apps, and they can keep everything very consolidated in the same place, which is what people want to do. So that's the basis of all the fintech stuff that we're working on.
So, do you have any numbers you can share so far of the Treasury product, right? Because I think that's a super interesting thing. Like the DeFi primitive has been around for forever, right? I saw, Stani from Aave was talking about the huge uplift, the huge distribution that this can contribute to Aave. Any numbers that you can share?
Yeah. So I think there's already, and we haven't rolled this, I don't think, to everybody yet, and it's in very much beta still, and I think we already have almost 3% of overall volume on ramped by people proactively. So that means we're not even trying to say, hey, go on ramp your money to earn yield. It's just happening naturally. And 3% sounds like a small number, but it was announced maybe a week ago, and we haven't done much in the product to push it at all, and all you can do is earn yield so far. So we're very excited about it, and we expect that number to be a lot higher soon.
What is the geographic distribution of your users? Because I'm thinking about the options to get yield, and if you're in the US, you can probably have access to a wide range of financial services. If you're outside of the US, maybe your options are far more limited. And I'm kind of wondering, like, why is this an attractive product for Whop users? Are they abroad and they don't have access? Is it a generational thing? Are they just younger and they trust you guys more than they trust Morgan Stanley? What's the background here?
Well, I think again, there's not a lot of new stuff that we've introduced to the world. The beauty of what we've introduced is that it's all in the same place. And if you're earning your income in one place, and then you have to take that income, you have to move it around, you have to put it in a bunch of different institutions, and you have to open up all these different applications to check the status of anything, that's a pain in the ass. So by bringing it closer, let's assume everybody already does have access to a high yield savings account. Let's assume everybody in the world has access to USD. And those are obviously two huge, not necessarily truths. But let's imagine everybody already does have that. It's exponentially more valuable when it's directly next to the place of income. So I think the beauty of it is really that it's super tightly integrated and end to end. But of course, you're absolutely right in that most countries, you definitely don't have the ability to open up a high yield savings account. You definitely don't have the ability to hold your money in USD outside of what stablecoins allow for. So those are huge reasons in those countries.
Yeah, but like if you think about it, like someone like me, I've already got a brokerage account. I run everything out of one brokerage account. Like I wouldn't necessarily want to start opening a brokerage account or a yield account on Whop tomorrow, even if I had the chance to, simply because, there's in financial services, you get this through when people just stick to what they're doing anyway, right? Nevertheless, there seems to be quite a lot of appetite from your audience. I'm trying to figure out why. Is it because they're young, they don't have accounts? Is it because they're like geographically distributed in the way? Like what's a
Well, so unless you make money on Whop, I'm going to say something that may not be what people want to hear, but we don't really want to focus on those people. And I don't think they're actually. I wouldn't recommend that you go and put all your money into Whop. I mean, it's great that happens, and people do that, as you said. But our focus is on making sure that people that are earning money can do a lot more with their money, and that's why people use it. So we don't actually care. We didn't release a standalone wallet product. That's not the point of product. It's very much to compound on this existing huge base of businesses that are earning a lot of money, and that's why we released it.
Yeah, no, that part is clear, right? You're providing the distribution, right? You're giving this as a tool to your users, and you're making it super convenient for them to access these financial primitives that they may or may not have had access to before. And because it's on the same platform, it's convenient, and it's primarily aimed to keeping your users happy. So you've launched Yield. Yield is one component, right? Because if you want to keep people on platform, you need to give them the ability to spend the money, to do other things with their money, etc., etc. Is there anything else on your roadmap that you can share?
Yeah, so I can't necessarily share exact specifics, but the way to look at it is look what people do with their money today on the platform after they get it. We're going to bring a lot of that functionality onto the platform so that they can do everything in one spot. So you can imagine what else people do with their money outside of wanting to earn high yield. I mean, they want to invest it into Bitcoin, into gold, into tokenized stocks like Tesla or whichever, and they should be able to do that directly from the platform. So you can imagine stuff like that coming soon.
What about payments, right? Because you mentioned the use case that a lot of people are buying Meta ads or buying Google ads. Meta recently announced that they're no longer taking card payments. Is there an opportunity there for you guys?
Yes, there is a huge opportunity there for us. We're very much piloting, let's say, some features around advertising. If you again imagine the same track where you earn this money on a platform where you're running your business, you withdraw the money, you put some in savings, you put some in Bitcoin, and you put the rest into Meta ads. That flow is going to be brought to our platform. And we already have I actually can't say much about this yet, but we already have a really promising pilot program on the topic that you're discussing.
Okay, all right. I'm not going to push too much on that then. So if you were to talk to yourself from, I don't know, like 10 years ago or God knows how long ago when you first started on this journey, what sort of advice would you give to a young kid starting out right now? You actually tell them, lean in, try to go for it, try to create a successful business on Whop. What would you say to this type of person?
I would say you need to find someone that you really, really like and get along with and can argue with and trust that you want to build with. And I think there's nothing higher leverage to do than to find somebody that fits that profile. And before you do anything, you should find people that are like-minded, that want to go all in and all out on building something. And I think combining forces is the luckiest thing that happened to me. I'm very grateful that I've gotten to meet all the people that I get to work with. And the reason I've been able to do that is because I've chatted to people online for the last 15 years and developed really close relationships. And now we get to build all this stuff together. And that's the only way it's possible. If you're building alone, it's very hard, and you may have a little bit more difficulty than working and finding someone else to work with.
You mentioned that you met one of your co-founders in a Facebook group or Discord channel. I don't remember exactly where you were trying to buy or sell software. Do you think, have you heard of people, co-founders meeting on Whop and starting businesses together?
Yes, absolutely, all the time. The primary CTA when you start a new business is add team. The chances of success of the business are so much more likely when you start the business with somebody else. You hold each other accountable. One of you is in a rut, the other person's firing on all cylinders, and vice versa. So we have so many people that met in chats and forums on Whop and that are starting businesses together on the platform. There's one that was kind of cool that we had at our all hands a bit ago is two 14-year-olds that have built a very successful app agency, and I believe they met on Whop, and they sell to predominantly Whop businesses, and they build apps for them. So that's kind of like a very good example of finding partners on the platform, finding customers on the platform, building apps and experiences on the platform.
I think one of the interesting things around Whop is that it's on one hand it's this marketplace for digital services. On the other hand, you're kind of expanding into the fintech side of things because naturally it works quite well with the marketplace itself. Do you see yourself primarily as sort of fintech company?
Yeah, that's a great question. We say internet market, and we imagine Whop to be this really vast farmers market almost, where people can set up stands, and in those stands you have your cash register, and then you have all the financial technology underneath as to what you're supposed to do with those earnings. And then you can walk around, you can chat with people, you can go to different stands, you can partner up, and you're on your quest to build an empire on the internet. So it's definitely, people want us to fall into a marketplace, they want us to fall into a fintech company, but we say internet market.
So you guys have grown really, really fast, and I feel like your reputation hasn't quite reached the sort of fintech circles, maybe even investor circles in some places, of what it is exactly that you do. What are some of the main misconceptions you have to deal with as a CEO around what Whop is and what Whop does?
Yeah, I mean, I think most companies, I guess, just to preface is that when most companies that become extremely successful, there was a period of time in the early days that nobody had any idea or were very confused why people were using it. Take Uber, for example. The idea of getting into your car, a stranger's car, was super confusing. Airbnb, the idea of staying in a stranger's house was almost repulsive, but investors and so on. eBay, in the early days, predominantly sold Beanie Babies, and those were thought of really weird products that were sold. And I think for us, a lot of people on Whop sell different things, and there are various levels of how vocal the different sellers are on the platform. So what tends to happen is that people think Whop is just for this, just for that, just for this, and they don't necessarily connect the dots at the top level, where we really just offer phenomenal primitives that people can put together and craft almost anything they want. So some people think that Whop is the clipping platform, and that's all we do. And I've been on calls where there are major people that are like, hey, I know that you guys do this, and little do they know that this is just one random application that an external team built on top of our ecosystem. We don't even I think that there's that type of misconception. There's the misconception that we're a marketplace for consumers and we sell consumers courses. And that is also like, we don't really even focus that much on our marketplace as of the last couple of years, because we've been so focused on making sure that the supply side has all this amazing infrastructure. And not to mention, courses is not even the majority of our volume. So I think people tend to over-index on whichever voices are the loudest across all these different verticals.
Yeah, can you share some numbers around like what the breakdown of the volume is, right? Because we've mentioned courses, we've mentioned content rewards, which is the sort of clipping side of things. Roughly, what's the split? Like, what are the biggest categories on Whop, and how big are they? You mentioned there's about 300 million a month in payouts. How does that get divided amongst industries?
Yeah, so we call courses internally education programs because not all of them are video courses, right? You can go and imagine like an in-person meetup where people actually have a boot camp, and that's an education program. So education program and private communities are our two biggest segments, and we call them business models. So those two represent maybe, I don't know if I can give an exact number actually, but those are the biggest two, and they're almost tied.
Mm-hmm.
And the next biggest is agency services. So this is
Mm-hmm.
email marketing agencies, development agencies, design agencies, construction agencies, all sorts of service-oriented agencies, pool cleaners, like all sorts of crazy stuff. And then you have software as the next category. This is your iOS apps, your web apps, subscription-based software products, and then you have physical products. And that's the general breakdown. And we have a problem often is that there are so many new emerging business models that they don't always fit into our normal representation of how we delineate between categories. So there's this long tail of really interesting platforms. Like, what do you call a marketplace that lets people buy and sell fire trucks? Is it a physical product business? Is it a services business? Is it a marketplace business? It's very vague. So we have this huge long tail of craziness. And again, we're a very engineering heavy company, and we focus on our core primitives and components, and that just unlocks a lot of random use cases, which makes it, I think, often difficult to understand what we offer.
With the clipping content rewards stuff, that would fit under agencies, right? In the category that you mentioned above.
That's right.
I think the interesting thing is, because you offer all these primitives, you must see people come up with all sorts of things that might blow your mind in terms of how successful they are or how imaginative the creators are. What are some of the coolest businesses that you've seen recently where you said, wow, that's really interesting?
Yeah, there's just so many crazy things. I think that I'm always blown away at how big some of these markets are that nobody has any idea of. So, for example, there's a platform that does bus rides in Kenya that has a huge amount of volume paid out to local bus drivers. It's almost like an Uber, but you're driving buses and you call the whole bus. So there's things like that completely blow my mind. There's really young kids that are actually making money playing video games. Imagine that 20 years ago, knowing that you can make more than your entire household income by playing Fortnite all day. So that stuff is always very exciting. It's almost like there's a lot of I call them niche groups for targeting very specific groups of similar people. So imagine nurses who travel. There's people that there's men's groups, there's women's groups, there's men's sales groups, there's women's sales groups, there's acupuncture groups. There's so many of these little niche groups that are always really fascinating, just to know that people are actually earning a sustainable income doing things that they love to do. I don't know. I could probably go on.
No, this is super interesting. Let's talk about the groups, because I think that's one thing that, particularly for people of a certain generation, it's really hard to understand. Why would you pay money to be part of a group? What does that look like? Are you buying a sense of community? Are you buying advice? Why would I pay to be part of a group online?
Well, it's always hard to understand why you would do it until you get hit with an opportunity to do it in a niche that you're passionate about. It's not possible for you to understand why you want to be a part of a female nurse community in Florida. That doesn't make any sense. But the second you say, hey, you want to be in a group chat with the top 30 Substackers in the world, and everybody shares what they're going to do that week, it all of a sudden makes a little bit more sense. So I think it's the reason why you do it is if you respect the person behind it, you trust their taste and their ability to curate a network and keep the community going, and you maybe want the alpha from the community.
Super interesting, because if we end up in a world where more and more content is going to be generated by AI, and every time you open social media it's just a steady stream of AI slop, then the value of curation goes up tremendously, and you're going to be looking out for people who can curate content for you, and you're probably going to be willing to pay for it as well.
Exactly. I mean, I think we're very bullish on what humans can offer to the world in a post AGI economic world, and we think it will distill down to taste, network, and the rest of your human ingenuity.
One last question for you. Since the launch of AI coding tools, particularly since, Cloud Code became particularly popularized last year in November, December, etc., there's been a flow of new apps being created on the App Store, a ton of new websites, programs, etc. being created. How has that impacted you guys? Are you also seeing a tremendous amount of new people trying to produce and publish apps like I did yesterday?
Yeah, there's this huge explosion of people wanting to start businesses, and the supply side has exploded, right? There's so many apps. I think that the number of successful apps is probably still the same. Maybe even lower. And there's actually maybe even more consolidation on some of the best apps that are out there. So I think a lot of the platforms that are playing into anybody can start their own app and so on. And so the problem is that they don't realize that the consumers can only use so many apps. And I think we've obviously seen a huge explosion in people that want to start businesses, people that want to make money on the internet. And I think we try to balance it with what can somebody reasonably offer another person, and is it going to be worth the money? Not is it going to make the person who's creating it happy? Like that's great, but we need to make sure they're actually making a sustainable income. So we have seen a huge explosion around it. We haven't quite seen, I don't think, the number of people necessarily go up as much as the world wants quite yet from purely building apps. Other areas, absolutely.
All right, got it. Stephen, thank you so much for your time. Is there anything we haven't covered yet that you think we should definitely cover?
I think you asked some good questions, Boaz. It was really great talking with you.
All right, great chatting to you.